I think there is a difference between dumb luck and there's strategic luck. So what strategic luck is having a general idea of what you want and then putting yourself in a position where things can happen. The people out there who are successful, they don't do it by accident, but very oftentimes it does happen by accident, but it doesn't happen if you do nothing.
What's the difference between the company just going skyrocketing and the one that's stagnating?
The only difference is the amount of resources that one has, because small companies and big companies face the same problems.
How did you help this company to, like you said, like go from low 7 figures, right, to multiple 7 figures?
If you just put basic structure in place and then give people a very clear path, their life becomes a lot easier. Their stress goes way down and their rate of success goes way up. I talked to people, and what I discovered was everyone loves the idea of purpose, but at the end of the day, they care more about freedom. And so I came up with this construct of what I call a financial hierarchy of needs, which is...
Welcome everybody to the new episode of The Founder's Gambit. Joining me today is my good friend Ben, a former president of Zendrop, one of the fastest growing e-commerce platforms in the US. And today he has done what most people never do. He walked away from an extremely high status C-suite role to build his own product, Moonlite Money. Ben, welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So can you maybe start us off with who you are and what are you doing right now?
Well, thank you for that great introduction. I think you covered a lot of it. So my name is Ben. I'm currently the founder of a company called Moonlite Money. We're in development and pre-revenue. I'm working with Gabriel on this project right now. My background, as he mentioned, is the president of Zendrop, and in just 3 years, we managed to scale revenue 10x and completed a merger. At that point, I thought, okay, I have equity in this new thing. I've gotten a W, and I see a lot of problems in the industry, and I thought it's time to build new equity in something else instead of continuing down the path with what I already have. So we started over, gave up multiple six-figure salary, gave up good bonuses, a lot of opportunity, all to risk it all on a startup. So a little bit before that, just for context, I worked in kind of VC where I was evaluating businesses for funding. After that, I joined a tech startup, and that startup went from 20 employees to well over 200. We raised over $100 million on safe notes and became a unicorn that ended up IPOing via SPAC. After that, I did technology investment banking, sell-side M&A for software companies. And that's where I really learned what do buyers want, what questions do they ask, where do the challenges arise, and what makes a fully optimized company from the perspective of an investor. And then from there, after working in there for a few years, I went and started working by myself, doing technology consulting for companies, including businesses doing 50 million of revenue and completing 9-figure transactions as a freelance consultant, which led me to Zendrop. And Zendrop was a good company when I started, but it was in the single millions of revenue and it had no profit. And then we scaled up 10x both revenue and headcount, became wildly profitable, and completed a merger. So that was kind of my career leading up to this. And now taking the biggest risk of all the success I've had and betting the house on something new.
This is amazing. Yeah, before we tap more into the Moonlight, I really want to highlight this because you have an insane story, right? It's not a traditional career where you pick something, you stick with it, and you just keep doing that. You kind of jump between some wild environments. Banking, VC, startups, tech, you were a president, there's a leadership. Like there is a lot of things that you just kind of navigated through and jumped on. And you mentioned something cool before our call. You mentioned something you call strategic luck. Like, can you explain that? What does that mean? And how that, especially in your context, right? You have a crazy career jumping all this stuff. How does that work? And what is it?
Yeah, so I'm extremely lucky. I was lucky enough to join a startup that became $1 billion unicorn. I was lucky enough to get my job as an investment banker because I was in the right place at the right time. And I was very lucky to join a company like Zendrop right at this precipice of when it took off and did very well. Now, I did a lot to influence that, but a lot of it was luck. And what I think there is a difference between dumb luck, which is you're walking down the sidewalk and you stumble across $100. The odds of that happening are the same for you as they are for anyone else. And then there's strategic luck. And the point is that you can never foresee what the future is going to bring. But if you just go to a 9 to 5 job and then you come home and you watch Netflix, there's no opportunity for luck to present or manifest itself. And so, what strategic luck is having a general idea of what you want and then putting yourself in a position where things can happen. And that involves risk and that involves uncertainty. You cannot win the lottery if you don't buy a lottery ticket. You had to risk a little bit of money to buy a ticket. You have to, if you want to go viral, you ever see that kid and you're like, God, this guy's such an idiot and he's driving this Lamborghini. Okay, he posted something. He did something. The people out there who are successful don't do it. I was going to say they don't do it by accident, but very oftentimes it does happen by accident, but it doesn't happen if you do nothing. So the key is to do something. And actually, there's a really interesting story that I could tell real quick, which is this guy who is a venture partner at a very active fund in the US. He had 45 successful exits, 45 businesses over about 15 years that he invested in that sold. And one day they said, we've had a lot of success. How can we recreate this success? So they looked through the decks of the 45 companies that they sold to try to find what did they all have in common. As they're going through the decks, they found that they only had one thing in common. And that one thing was when they sold the business, they were not doing the thing that they pitched that they were going to do. So did they just get lucky? And yeah, the answer is they did, but strategic luck. And what you look for is not, is this the idea that's going to take us to the moon? It's, do you have a founding team who is capable? Do they have a sound plan? And are they willing to execute? And do they have an ego that's small enough that they can pivot when the time is right? Because you're going to have to pivot. And so if you know that to succeed, you have to do something, and that the thing that you do is not the thing that's going to make you successful in the beginning, that it changes over time, then what can you do? All you can do is get in the market, try something, put your content out there, do what you're doing, right? Just start talking to people. Who knows? Maybe I unlock doors for you that you never would have had before if you just kept your head down. Maybe this podcast gets seen by somebody that never would have seen it before. The week I made TikTok, I made one TikTok and I immediately got connected to the founder of a multi-billion-dollar company. Immediately, just by posting like one video.
Same. Yeah.
So put yourself out there, do something. Don't get so in love with your idea that you force it to fit. Be ready to pivot and just keep doing things.
Okay, so would you say like it's action and not overthinking? You can't start and be perfect, but just start and you'll figure it out on the way. If you need to pivot, you pivot. If you need to stick to it, you just stick to it, right?
Overthinking is a deadly disease. Whenever people are talking about starting a business, if the first thing that they do is go and try to file an LLC and come up with a name and come up with a logo, they're probably doomed to fail. The people who succeed are the ones that just go out there and start doing something. And then if it works out, then they're like, holy crap, I should create a legal entity because I'm making money. Those are the people that succeed. Don't overthink, just start doing stuff.
Let's touch a bit on your story in Zendrop. That's the last journey before the Moonlight. So for people who don't know, what exactly was your role at Zendrop? Okay, it's president, but what does that contain? What do you do there, and how did you help this company to, like you said, like go from low 7 figures, right, to multiple 7 figures?
Yes, that's a great question. So what is the role of a president? And the answer is there is no defined role. It's just complete uncertainty, which is a really great position to have to prepare you for entrepreneurship. So as president, I just tried to figure out what should we do to grow? Who are we as a business? A lot of it was really the CEO role. So the CEO at the time, he had built this thing and he just did something and it turned into something. And he's like, now I don't know what to do with this. And his strategy after that was, okay, I want to try this new idea. I want to try that new idea. I want to try this new thing. I want to try that new thing. When I came in, my strategy was no new things. All we're going to do is focus on what do we do better than anyone else in the world, and how can we do that as good as possible until we grow. And then once we grow and we have an abundance of resources, which we weren't really that profitable at the time, so we couldn't just hire a bunch of people to manage things. We only had enough resources to do one thing. So let's just do that one thing as good as we can, maximize that. And then once we have abundance from that strategy, then we pursue new things. So that was kind of what happened. So I came in, the first thing I did was talk to every single person in the company. I mean, there's only 20, but 20 calls is still a lot. And I got the lay of the land. What's working, what's not working, where are your biggest pain points, where are your biggest problems, where are the biggest opportunities. And then we just defined roles. And what happens is if you just put basic structure in place and then give people a very clear path, what should I do and how do I know if I succeed? And what are the things that I could do wrong that I should avoid? Their life becomes a lot easier. Their stress goes way down and their rate of success goes way up. And so you have these regular check-ins. And the problem with the business was not only did you have all these scattered ideas and all these resources being pulled in all these directions with no abundance of resources, you also had no clear definition of success. So people were just trying to do a bunch of stuff and they had no idea if they're doing good or bad. And it was like a little bit chaotic. So I just put processes in place. The next thing I did once I felt like this is now a machine that's running is we said, how can we grow? And the first thing I did was look at data. But the issue was there was no way to look at data at the time. I would ask, hey, can I see this information? And the CTO would literally go into the back end, export an Excel file, send it to me, and then I would have to create a pivot table and analyze it. And every time I wanted to update it, I had to get a new export, and then I had to create a new pivot table. And the data was totally messy. It was like I didn't know what header went to what data. I was like, what does this mean? So the first thing I did was find a software that I could plug into, that I could access the data, organize the data, and visualize the data, orchestration, visualization. And then we found that there were people that we could see now. And it's like, oh, this person signed up. And if I could see someone's email and their domain, and maybe if Shopify fed us some information, then I could say, this person has a big store. Let's contact all the big people. Thus was born a sales process. So now we have outbound sales, we have data, we have a CRM. We can now do lead magnets to attract people that are more like the people that are working. And then just by winning a couple big customers, we were able to very quickly double the business. And so we doubled the business, went profitable, and started hiring sales reps. Sales reps are a high ROI position. And so we just started ROIing. Then we dug into, okay, we have two aspects of the business. You have software and you have service. We just tapped into the service side, which is sales and fulfillment. Then there's the software side. We have a platform that has product discovery. It has a variety of things. So we looked at what's working. We found that where our traffic was coming from was a couple influencers. So these very few, very large people were driving a ton of traffic. It caused a bit of risk because if you lose one of them, they're all gone. But also created a lot of opportunity, which is, hey, these guys are doing stuff that's good. Let's go find more people like that and then onboard them and grow. And so we did that very successfully. Now we have outbound for sales, and now we have outbound for influencer acquisition. And this is something that I've learned that I'm bringing into Moonlite as well, which is that influencers are an amazing traffic source. So between those two things, we just kind of milked those strategies a lot to grow and grow and grow. And then as we grew from 20 employees to over 200, we had a lot of pains. And you just every day wake up as president and say, what are the biggest problems that we're facing and the biggest opportunities that we have? How do I solve the biggest problems and tap into the biggest opportunities? And that's it. Otherwise, like, you have no job description. You have no specific role. It's how can I make the most impact? And this is something that I think anyone can think about if you're in an organization or starting a new business, which is if I want to be the most valuable person in an organization that exists or have the biggest impact on the company that I'm creating, all you have to do is identify the largest problems and solve them. And if you do that over and over and over again, every day, every week, eventually you'll have a very well-run machine.
This is amazing. I love how you simplified it. It sounds so like simple. I know how hard that can be. So essentially, it's focus. So first of all, people, right? They know they were there before you, so you went interview them all, get the data, or understand how the business is running. Then find the focus, get the data, and then clean up one thing after another. Make processes, make it simpler for these people to execute their tasks, and then let them do their thing. Right? Again, it's
Yeah.
all about the team.
There's no silver bullet. A lot of people say, well, how'd you 10x the revenue of a business that was already doing millions in just a few years? And it's like, well, just brute force every day, tons of attention, tons of effort, a lot of trial and a lot of failure. Through that growth, the amount of times that we've lost hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of dollars was more than once. It was not smooth. It was not easy. And we got there, but like, you got to just try. And a couple times we just got lucky, right? Which the things that we thought would work didn't work, and the things that we didn't think were going to take off took off. So you just have to keep trying.
Okay, so you work with both like smaller and larger companies there, right? And smaller and larger creators. So what's the biggest difference between the two? What's the difference between a smaller company that's maybe just starting out, or maybe not even starting out? They are in business for 10 years, but they just can't grow. Like what's the difference between the companies just going skyrocketing and the one that's stagnating?
Well, I'll answer two different questions there, which the first question is what's the difference between a small company and big company? And I think that this is important, which is that the only difference is the amount of resources that one has. Because small companies and big companies face the same problems. And a lot of people get stuck in this, oh, I probably can't help a company doing 50 million of revenue. Companies doing 50, $100 million of revenue, just as big of shit shows as companies doing $1 to $5 million of revenue. And if you understand that you can take the exact same skills, the exact same problems, and instead of just helping a very small company that has very few resources, apply those same skills and resources to larger businesses, well, then you can earn way more by doing the exact same thing just by serving people who have more resources. Because if you make a 10% difference at a company doing $50 million of revenue, your value is much higher than if you make a 10% difference at a company doing $500,000 of revenue. And so your value to that business with the exact same skill set is multiples higher because the business is multiples larger. So that's one thing I want people to understand. Don't be afraid to approach larger businesses. They're complete messes just like everyone else. So that's thing one. Now, thing two of what causes someone to grow versus causes someone not to grow, I would say the thing that I've seen that makes the biggest difference is whether or not the founder is willing to touch grass. Now, what the hell does that mean? If you have a founder that sits at home at his computer with his head down and theorizes, I think my customers want this. I did a bunch of research and this metric says that. And I just build, and I talk to anyone. Those are the ones that fail, especially if they're in love with their idea and they're trying to be like, well, clearly my idea should work. I'm going to force it to work, and it doesn't work. The ones who succeed are the ones who network, the ones who talk to their customers, the ones who care a lot about the experience. So if I'm out there every day and I'm interacting with my customers, they'll tell me, I like this, I don't like that. Now, the funny thing is, very oftentimes the things that they tell you that they like are not the things that you thought they would like. The things that they say that they want are not the things that you thought they would want. And so you get aligned with reality, not with theory. This is not academia. Going to college is great to learn some theory, but it's not great to win at reality. And I've been interviewing people that are millionaires for the past few weeks, and very oftentimes they're 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. And they're like, I didn't get any value from school. I just started selling electronics on the side, and now I have this business that I never could have foreseen. And I had a very similar experience, which was I went to college, but the value I got out of college was by starting clubs and by networking with people in the space. It wasn't from the books. It was from real world, real people. And if you have a founder that isn't willing to interact with the customers and wants their team to do it on their behalf and just hires people, I want you to hire and trust people. But if they just say, you handle it, and they don't guide them with a vision and they're not interacting with the people, it's not going to fail, or it's not going to succeed. It's going to fail. So you need a founder who is embedded in the mission, embedded in the vision, obsessed with their customers, and in the market, talking to people, talking to influencers, talking to competitors, talking to people that could help them, and creating these partnerships and these relationships. Software is zeros and ones at the end of the day, but those zeros and ones are completely useless if you don't have human beings interacting with each other. So be in the market, touch grass.
Okay. So let's touch on both of these things. You mentioned how smaller and bigger companies are both struggling. People in there don't know what they are doing. But the question is, how do I crack those bigger companies? How do I ask them? How do I reach them? And that probably connects to the second part you told, go touch grass, right?
Yeah, totally. So the question is, how do you win bigger companies, really? And I think you touched on one of the answers, touch grass, essentially. If you network with people who know, like, and trust you, you will start getting more recommendations than you can handle. When I became a freelance consultant on strategy and finance, very vague, okay, I started getting more leads than I could handle. I started raising and raising and raising my prices, hoping people would say no, because I'm like, I don't want to get to a point where I'm overwhelmed. And they kept saying yes. I was charging well over $200 an hour. I started at 125 and then 150 and then 175 and then 200 and 225. They just kept saying yes. They would say, holy smokes, that's a high number. And I would say, yeah, but the value is much more than that. And they'd be like, okay, fine, I'll work with you. Because I was a recommendation from someone that they trusted, and someone that they trusted presumably paid a high number too, and they still recommended me. So that's one thing. The other thing I would recommend doing, and this is kind of on the opposite flip side, is do free work. Okay. If you are reaching out to somebody on a cold email and you just have a block of text that you sent to 100 other people, you probably will not get a reply. But if you say, hey, Gabriel, I did this for you, just wanted to check it out, send it over. They're like, what the hell does this guy do for me? And there's like a link to a trusted website, and they go and they see, I analyzed their business. I went through your website, your pricing. I took an hour or two of my day to do that with a customer that I actually want to work with. They're like, holy crap, I kind of feel obligated to talk to this guy now. And he's clearly worth his salt. He just gave me a bunch of free value that I would have happily paid for in the first place. Now you pretty much got him. So whenever I got an introduction, if I wanted to win a customer, I would say my goal is to tell you 3 things you don't know about your own business in 3 days. And so then I would send a very light request list, revenue by customer by month, P&L, balance sheet, so forth. And I would just take that and I would analyze it in ways that they've never thought of before. That as an investment banker who's seen dozens, if not hundreds of companies, I've been able to look at companies in all sorts of different ways. I've talked to hundreds of investors. I've been on thousands of calls. I know what gets asked. I know where these little nitty gritty things are hidden. I can uncover those better than anyone else. So I would do that. I would do free work, analytics, and say, here's 3 things you probably don't know. And on top of that, this is where the value is, 3 things that you could do to improve those things. I never lost a deal. Actually, I started doing this as an investment banker because I hated doing pitches where you had to make like 50 plus slide decks over a weekend. So I just started doing this instead, and we would win deals and they wouldn't even talk to the other investment banks. So if you can do free work up front, it demonstrates your value. It'll get people on a call, and you'll never lose a deal.
That's amazing. Yeah. And they are more likely to trust you, right? You're not asking for something, you're first giving and then asking. And
Yeah, of course. And
thankfully,
you build yourself up as a figure of authority. You're a figure of authority that they trust because they say, okay, this makes sense. Now, if you do a bad job and you don't add value, you just wasted your time. So you have to be good at what you do, because this is an interview. But the hardest part is getting the interview. So if you just do the interview without asking, well, then you're in a great spot. But you have to nail the interview.
oh, this is nice. So just to go back a bit on Zendrop before we go to Moonlight. So if you had to summarize the entire time at Zendrop that you had and into one lesson, what would that be?
If I had to summarize Zendrop into one lesson, what would that be? Figure out what makes your company unique and what has made it succeed up to this point, and double and triple down on that one thing for that one specific user. Do that as much as you can until you've completely tapped that out, and don't think about anything else until you've done that one thing.
Okay, so it's again focus, solve one problem, then go to another. Don't try and solve 10 different problems at the same time.
Yes, if you try to do many things, you will do nothing well. So do one thing. And this is a lesson in management as well. If you have a group of 200 people and you say, hey, can someone please do this? No one's going to do it. You have to say, hey, you do this thing. And they will say, okay. And then it will get done. It's just like work. You need focus. It's marketing. You need focus. You need someone that you talk to. Before we got on this interview, I'm like, who am I giving advice to? Because if I'm giving advice to like a $50 million CEO, the way they answer the questions are very different than if I'm talking to someone who has no money and is looking to start a startup versus if someone has a startup and they're, just looking to start. So you need to be very clear. Who do I serve? How do I serve them? How do I do it differently and better than anyone else? And then just mine that vein as deeply and specifically as you possibly can.
Perfect. Great, Ben. Nice. So let's talk about why and how you transition. So most people would kill for the position you had, like being a president of a big US company, equity, stability, status, all is there. But what made you like walk away and just do your own thing?
I'm just self-destructive, man. Yeah, and it's funny because the guys there are like my brothers, the team is like my family. There was nothing wrong. But after we did this exit, it was a merger and I got some cash. It gave me the ability to take a step back and think about what do I want my life to look like in 10 years from now? What is my optimal journey on this earth? What is, big questions like what is my purpose that are super cliche? I started asking those, and this is when ChatGPT was becoming a thing. So, you got your little therapist there. You're like, why am I here? And I started actually contemplating it a lot. And I realized that I wanted to have something that was a reflection of my identity and of my values and something that I had complete control over that was not being built to sell, but was being built because I wanted to change the world and make an impact. And Zendrop is a very good company and it's a very good mechanism for creating wealth. But at the end of the day, there was a different founder who had a different vision and it identified a lot of problems in the market. And this is a market I'm very passionate about, which is why I was a great fit at Zendrop, which is how can I help everyday people create freedom and fulfillment in their lives? And dropshipping is a very popular avenue that taps into this because all the influencers in the space, which I know very well, they market how much success they have. It's a marketing tool. When they buy a Lamborghini, sure, they like Lamborghinis, but it's a very powerful marketing tool to say, I got this by doing that, and I can show you how to as well. Just take my course and then sign up for Zendrop, right? That's how it all fits together. But drop shipping is not for everyone. And so I thought if I can figure out, all these people that failed at Zendrop, what are the things they could have done that would have led them to success? Because if you can just find that thing that people obsess over and they can't stop doing, they'll succeed eventually and they'll keep doing it through the valley of despair when nothing's working out just because they love doing that thing until it works out. If you have somebody who is, I don't know, let's just say one type of person that is not a good fit for dropshipping, but they love the idea of freedom and they get sucked into dropshipping, once it gets hard, they're going to give up. And so you have to find the thing for them that they're not going to give up on. And I wanted to find that thing for me, which was how can I find that thing for everyone else? And that's kind of what led me down this path of exploring what Moonlight has been evolving into.
Nice. So essentially, your vision is to help these other people find their purpose, find how they can earn more money or whatever might their goal be, right?
Yeah. And my vision has evolved over time by touching grass. So the original vision was help people find their purpose and use that to make their profit. Then I talked to people. And what I discovered was everyone loves the idea of purpose, but at the end of the day, they care more about freedom. And so I came up with this construct of what I call a financial hierarchy of needs, which is if people have nothing, they want the basic things. They want food, they want shelter, they want safety. Once you have food, shelter, and safety, well, now you want nice things. You want comfort and status. And once you have comfort and status and you have a good job, then you're like seeing these kids traveling around and having all this freedom in your life. Well, now you want freedom, right? And it's not until you're completely free and your bank account's full and you're sipping a martini on the beach that you're like, what is my purpose, that you shoot for then the top, which is fulfillment. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom and the top are the same, which is the top is self-actualization. And so I realized the market for self-actualization is fairly small. And if I wanted to tap into that market, I would have to go after doing some in-depth psychological Tony Robbins style consulting for CEOs, which sounds great and fun and fulfilling. However, this is not what I could build a software around for the masses. And I want to help more people. So I went down a notch and said, how can I find people who have resources but don't have freedom? Build that freedom. And so I started talking to more and more people. And at Zendrop, we had this kind of customer persona issue where a lot of the people that were attracted were lower down on the hierarchy and they didn't have an excess of resources. So these are the types of people that have not worked their way up to the point where they have a level of success. Why does that matter? Two reasons. One, budget. They didn't have that much money. So if anything at all was not working out how they wanted, that they would fight like hell for a refund, and churn was very high, rightfully so. But at the same time, they have not yet experienced what it takes to be some sort of level of successful, which once you've reached a certain point, this takes work. This is difficult and you've done it before and you're willing to do it again in a way that serves me differently than working into this job did. And so I'm targeting people that have a level of success for two reasons. One, they have budget. Two, they have work ethic. And these are the types of people that are actually set up for success. By doing this and having high quality people on the platform, you will naturally also attract I don't call them lower quality people, but like the not ideal persona. And then they can learn from these higher quality people. But if I just target these people that are r/side hustle, how can I make a couple extra bucks on the side? They're going to kind of dilute the quality of the platform in terms of, I just want to make an extra 50 bucks this month. Now my guy who's like, how can I make 500K a year and then travel the world is not going to be able to resonate with the content very well because he's going to be like, this is beneath me. So I'm shooting for that higher echelon, not the purpose, but the comfort and status wanting freedom echelon to give them the freedom. And then hopefully we can create a little group together of all these people who have achieved freedom and figure out our purpose together.
Amazing. And like you mentioned your mission a lot, and you are solving a real problem, but it's also so aligned with who you are and what you want to do. Do you think that's really important for someone who just, let's say someone wants to start their own SaaS or product or whatever it might be? Is it important that they are aligned, or if they just want to make money, is that still fine? Like just go do whatever.
Yeah, I think it depends on your goal. If your goal is just to make money, then shooting for something to extract value with the strategy could work. I think the probability of success of people who just do that is much lower, and the probability you build a real company in the future is much lower. People who are very mission driven are the ones who can see around the corners that the others cannot, because you are one with this thing, as opposed to people who are just trying to extract money, which other people are going to try to do that as well. I am very difficult to compete with because I am obsessed with the idea. I am obsessed with the market. I'm obsessed with the psychology of this. I am a thought leader in the space, and I'm going to carve that out for myself. I have those relationships. If you're just trying to make money, well, then someone else who's just trying to make money is now your competitor. You no longer have an advantage, especially if you're in tech, going to the AI era where you can prompt out an MVP in 5 minutes. Good luck to you. So you need to figure out, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And then how can I leverage the core of my humanity to build something that also has a positive impact on other people? If you can find the overlap, the ikigai, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what makes money, if you can find that intersection and then figure out, why is this unique to me, then you're going to win. But if you're just trying to make money, you could make money. A lot of people make money. It's entirely possible. Your probability of success, much lower. You're probably building a real company, almost zero.
I like that because, as well, like if you don't like something, it's really hard to build a company, first of all. Like it's not just, hey, let's do it. And if you don't like what you're doing, it's even tougher. I can't even imagine how that must be. Like it's horrible.
I wouldn't say it's horrible. Maybe the day I run out of money, it'll be horrible. But as long as we don't get to that point, it's like people. What is this saying? I think it's Viktor Frankl said, "He who has a why can bear almost anyhow." And this is a man. I don't know if you know who Viktor Frankl is. He was a Jewish man during World War II who was put into Auschwitz. And he created this concept called logotherapy, which is solving neuroses through purpose. And what he found is that when he was in the concentration camps, he could tell if a prisoner was going to die days before they died and not because they got sick. These were people that gave up. And then he could see this pattern. They would just not get out of bed. It didn't matter how much the guards screamed at them. It didn't matter how much the guards beat them. It's not like they were sick, but they just wouldn't do anything because they had no purpose anymore. And then they would pass away. And this is true not for just concentration camps and getting out of bed. This is true for anything in life. If you're training for a triathlon, you have no reason why, you're probably going to give up. If you're starting a business and you have no reason why, you're probably going to give up. But if you have something greater that you serve, whether or not it's innate to you or external, that thing is the thing that will keep you going. It'll keep pushing you. And so I think having any sort of purpose is incredibly important to having any level of success in any endeavor that you take on.
Agreed, totally. And if you had to, so you've been doing this for a while now, right? And if you had to say what's like one of the hardest parts that you weren't maybe aware of building your company, what's that thing that's like maybe still bothering you or you're still trying to figure it out, or you cross that bridge?
Well, I'm building alone. I mean, I have you and I have the team, and that's one thing that really keeps me going. But through building alone, you second guess a lot of your decisions. And of course, everyone who is getting paid by you is going to validate your idea, but you don't have that other person who's risking their money next to you who's like, "Whoa, I don't know about that one. Like, you're spending how much on this?" Or like, "I don't know about that." Right. So I have a lot of self doubt, and I'm a pretty confident guy overall. But building a free platform and investing into several people's salaries without having gone to market with a true MVP. Yes, I tested a spreadsheet and it got a lot of traction on Reddit, but the thing that we're building is not that. This is much more sophisticated and much more complex. I don't know if it's going to work. And I'm trying to not overbuild features and just put out something fairly simple, but it's already a fairly complex tool. I have no idea how the market's going to resonate. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to get traffic. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to monetize. And I was looking at the math, like if I were just relying on ads alone, making this thing profitable with like normal conversion and CPAs would be very, very difficult. And so I've worked so hard my entire life to build up to this level of success where I do have a pile of cash that I can use however I want. And I look around and I'm like, I could buy an amazing beach house. I could live a comfortable life. I could live off of interest and dividends, and I could be probably fairly happy. And I'm taking all of that and I'm just potentially setting it on fire to the point where I'd have to start over from scratch and totally destroy my ego. And just living every day knowing that that is a reality and a possibility is difficult, especially when there's like no one by your side. And it makes me think, all right, should I take on a side project just to hedge and make money on the side and do consulting? But then I'm like, everything I preach is do one thing. So I shouldn't do that. So I put that to the side. And so then I'm like, should I raise money? Should I take on investors? Well, maybe, but I don't want to give up this level of vision and control that I have, which there are ways to do that. And I'm considering that route. But I just start thinking a million directions in a million ways that are all doubt, 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 doubt. And the only thing that keeps bringing me back to reality is when I go back and I talk to real people and I say, hey, do you want this? And they say, yes, I want this. And then I talk on both sides of the market. The influencers want it, which is super validating because they have audiences. All right, I have a little bit of faith that getting these people on board will get me traffic. And I talk to the people who want the thing and they say, yeah. These are the features and functionality I want. I'm like, okay, that's what we're building. So like the thing that helps me sleep at night and the thing that gives me confidence and keeps me going, one, this is innate to my purpose. Two, it's being validated by the market before it's being validated by the market. Now that's totally different than people pulling out their credit card. People can say anything they want, but what can I do? I just got to get to market as quickly as possible and pray that it works. And if it doesn't, figure out how we can pivot.
And this is nice that you mentioned the pivot. One thing I noticed and like kind of learned from you. Okay, now you say that you second guess every your decision. You don't know if it will work. You're afraid. But what I learned from you is how fast you make decisions. Like you are not wasting any time. Like if you see something that's not working, we pivot immediately. We just go to another one. And is there a philosophy behind that?
The philosophy is do what works, don't do what doesn't work. It's that simple. And if you have data to tell you what works and what doesn't work, it makes making decisions easy. Throw your ego in the trash. And now, how do you have a North Star that tells you whether or not you should do something or not do something instead of pulling at a million strings, kind of like we were doing at Zendrop when I first started? The best thing I could say is, and I didn't make this up, I don't know who did, but marry the problem, date the solution. The problem that I am trying to solve has not changed since day zero. Since you have started, since I've pursued this, I've been trying to solve the same problem. Now, how we solve that problem has changed as I learn and get more information. So once I get more information, the question is, how can I solve it better? Is this thing solving the problem the way that I want to? If not, what could I do better? And so then I keep pushing toward this North Star, but whether I go from a scooter to a bike to a car to an airplane to a rocket ship, that will change over time. But I'm still going north toward that star.
Perfect. Yeah. And like I know like how Moonlight evolved because I'm so involved in it. It was from what we started to what we have now, this is a completely different thing. Yes, like you said, it does serve the same purpose, but the solution is totally different. Let's go back a bit and in your words right now, what is Moonlight and why does it need to exist? Like what is in current state?
Moonlight is an online forum and review platform for people looking for ways to make money. The reason that Moonlight needs to exist is because there's so much information out there that people don't know how to take action. And then very oftentimes when people do take action, they find that their expectations are not aligned with reality. What this means is you could see an ad for something and then think, I want to do that. And then when you start, you take a course and you realize the course is not good. And then you start doing the thing and you realize it's much harder than you expected and you had to spend more money than you expected. What I'm doing is creating a place where that rips the mask off and creates complete transparency in the market. There are places that attempt to do that, like Reddit, but that is very scattered and anonymous, and you don't know who you can trust there. You don't even know if that information is good. And so I'm creating a place that you have verified profiles, you have complete transparency, you have credibility, and you have organized information. So I can actually see what is the probability of success. How much does this cost to start? And I can see people arguing about why they think this is easy or hard. And then the data that is displayed in an organized database fashion is based off the responses. So it really rips the mask off, makes it clear, demystifies the space, and it gives you the ability to know this is what I'm getting myself into. This is the tools I have to sign up for. And this is the person that I can trust to guide me.
Okay, then it ties back to what you saw in Zendrop, right? The problem where a lot of people apply there thinking, okay, I applied, now I'll make these millions or billions or whatever, and then they flop because they don't have enough experience, they don't have the money or resources to build the real business. So you want, again, go back, help those guys build it up.
Yeah, so Zendrop benefited a lot from creators who would set up misaligned expectations of reality. If I'm a creator and I tell you you're going to get rich overnight for no effort, all you have to do is sign up for this. Well, that got us a lot of signups. And we would hire creators that were in the space, but we didn't necessarily dictate their messaging. And so then this kind of gave me some uh, not great feelings about marketing. And so now I'm doing the opposite. Now my marketing is talking to creators who do things and then grilling them on the metrics and grilling them on what is reality. And then making sure that that's the information that is put out into the space on my brand's behalf, which is highly reliant on trust in the information that gets onto the platform.
Yeah, and again, real people can get on there and share their real experiences, right? Which is the essence of everything. It's one thing what
Exactly.
I say or you say or this creator says, but again, any average Joe who uses that creator can go in and say, hey, it's not good or it's great or whatever it might be.
Yep. And in the next few sprints, we have verified profiles on the roadmap. So, unlike Reddit, which culturally is anonymous, we are going to do the opposite and show you cannot interact with a review. You cannot leave a review unless you connect your LinkedIn and get a check mark. So, we're looking for different ways to solve the problem. See, and this is another great example. We haven't designed or developed this yet. We understand the problem with people being anonymous, and the way that we solve it is currently an idea. The way that I imagine that we develop that idea at this very moment in time versus how it actually is materialized could be two totally different things. We don't know yet. So all I could do is pursue whatever I think is the best idea at the moment until I get more information that tells me that this is either a good idea or a bad idea, and then pivot based on that information.
Okay. And let's go a bit in future. So let's say it's 3 years from now, Moonlight is already live, has a bunch of users. Where do you see it being and what do you see it represent?
I see Moonlight being the source of truth for people looking for ways to make money. I see Moonlight as being the authority on what works and what doesn't. I see Moonlight as being the thought leader on identifying new and interesting ways for people to make money that could be coming from things like AI. I see Moonlight as the place where people can connect with one another and help each other succeed. Moonlight is the place to go if you're not just a person looking for ways to make money, but also someone who has an idea and needs to know what resources actually work, or if you're a creator and you want to create that authority around yourself, that's the place that you go to build trust. And one day I imagine that all of these creators, all these people with courses are going to be competing on the website to get the best and the most reviews. And just like ClickFunnels, a very large company, they issue awards and YouTube issues awards. I will be issuing awards to the people who get the best reviews. And so every big YouTuber is going to have a plaque in the background of every YouTube video they have that says Moonlight verified, Moonlight trusted, 5 stars on Moonlight, whatever the metric that we decide is, which has to be hard to get. Can't everyone have it? They will put it there. And then when you go and they advertise something and send you to a landing page, they want to create what's called social proof above the fold. This means they want to build trust before you scroll. So I will create a widget that says Moonlight, 5 stars, whatever, just like Trustpilot and these other websites. Now, Moonlight is going to be everywhere that anyone can be trusted, and it's going to be necessary for a creator to include it if they want to win business. Anyone who does not have my platform's stamp of approval cannot be trusted, and the market will know that. And the people that do are the ones that you could go to. And so eventually, this is going to expose the scammers and bring all of the traffic that they were getting to the people who truly deserve it and actually set people up for success.
This is perfect because this is really a big issue in the marketplace right now. I told you the story the other day where I got scammed as well.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a tech savvy person, I should know what I'm doing. I check the reviews, I check all of that, but still I get scammed. It was
Reviews weren't verified.
still, it still like crunches me, right? How did I do this? How did I miss
Yeah.
this?
And these review websites, you just get one person reviewing, but you don't get a community of people who are calling them out and can downvote them if they're obviously fake. All you see is Trustpilot 5,000 5-star reviews. You don't know if they're bots. You don't know who they are. Here, we're creating an opportunity that if someone leaves a review and it's obviously fake, it can get downvoted and have zero impact on what is actually displayed at all.
Yeah.
It's a huge differentiator.
Yeah, it's perfect. It will be one source of truth, and that's amazing. All you
Yeah,
need to
and
look for is that.
that's why we're incredibly focused on how do we become that source of truth that we can build trust. And there's a lot of things that are problems and difficult to solve, but that's good because the more problems, the more difficult they are to solve, the more of a moat that we have. And so I get excited when I think about difficult problems to solve because if we can solve them in ways that others can't or haven't, then we win.
Can't wait for all this to come. Like this is amazing. Um,
Yeah, well, you're gonna have
look,
to solve the difficult problems with tech, brother. So good luck to you.
I love that. So that shouldn't be a problem. I like the challenge. I want to touch a bit on like identity and purpose because that's a lot of what you talk about. And you have this call like something called ego versus your actual self. I saw that you talked about this in another podcast. I want to understand what does that mean?
So, this is a little philosophical, psychological, spiritual stuff. I'm not particularly spiritual. I like to think about how does the human mind actually work. And when people talk about the id, the ego, things like that, I think about, okay, I'm not spiritual. I don't think there's like a spirit, but at the same time, when your spirit more or less feels aligned. What is this? How does it work? How do they fit? So basically when you're born, you're just you. You have nothing that's influenced you. It's all nature, no nurture. Over time, as you get older, these things that you maybe are naturally attracted to, let's say that you really like drawing, and that one day, as you get older, you develop a belief from the people around you that drawing is not a way to make money, and that because it's not a way to make money and that you need to make money, that you should discard this from the things that you either care about or spend time on doing. And so you take basically what was the self, and over time you shape it and you push things that are part of you into what's called the shadow. And then you have these things like, I think I should have a Lamborghini. I liked drawing and I didn't care about cars at all. But now, because of my environment, I think I should have a Lamborghini. So I buried drawing, and now I've created this identity of someone who wants a Lamborghini. So now the ego is what you think you should do based off what the world has told you. The shadow is what is part of you that you've buried, and the self is what is left. So it's what you haven't buried and what you've integrated over time. And I think that if you can take the things that are true to you and pull them out of your shadow and figure out how to utilize them and make them actually valuable to you, and then take the things that you're trying to do for ego reasons and discard them and be as aligned with yourself as possible, that's where you will find magic is made and you can build things and you can work endlessly into the night without getting tired. And then you could integrate your work life and your real life without ever feeling like you're working. And that's where you find happiness and that's where you find drive and motivation and energy. And it just never ends. And I think I've found that because I'm doing something that I feel is truly creative. I think it helps the world. It taps into all the things that are me. And I live every day with purpose and I'm extremely happy. And I think I want that for everyone else. And this is what I'm trying to build. I want everyone to have this life that I've created for myself that I love so much.
Perfect. And does that connect to like seasons in life? Because, okay, like these things impact us for sure. Like the experiences, the people, all of them have some type of impact. And like you said, you need to know what to discard and what to take home. Like, does that impact your for example, you went from VC, banking, like all these different types for certain amount of time, and then you jump or evolve or level up or however you want to call it.
I think seasons are kind of like the marry the problem, date the solution thing, which is that you can find the things that are you and are core to you and that you love, and then how you leverage those things that are innate to yourself over time can evolve with seasons. So right now I am very free. I'm single. I am not geographically tied to anywhere. I am risking a lot of my money, but one day I want to have a family and kids. And so I will think about how can I take all these qualities that I've been using to build companies and have freedom to creating the optimal happy family environment and creating like a marriage that works for me and for my partner, and a life that we're both aligned with. And I think that that's a lot of work. And I think that that is a purpose to have. And so, how you take these things that are you and you use them to shape your world changes depending on the season that you're in. But what you want to avoid is dating someone out of ego. Okay, she's really, really pretty, but her personality sucks. I'm going to just discard the personality because she's pretty. That's dating out of ego, right? So you want to make sure that you take the things that are you and are aligned with your life and apply them to everything in your life. And the way that that actually shows up is very different when you're 70 versus when you're 14.
Perfect. This is great. I want to talk a bit about your current status, right? So I'm assuming your biggest gambit or biggest risk was actually moving away from your job and starting this thing on your own. So
I
how
disagree.
do you disagree?
I disagree.
What was the biggest like risk you took?
The biggest risk I would have taken would have been not leaving.
Yeah.
If I stayed, I would have had to live with not knowing what could have been. If I would have stayed, I would have lived with having felt like I put my life on hold for the wrong reasons. If I would have stayed, I would have had to live with knowing that I already have this equity in this thing, but not knowing what value I could have created. I would have had to live with knowing that I'm building someone else's thing instead of my own thing. I would have had to live with doing something that was somewhat aligned with me, but not completely aligned with me. I would have had to do something that had geographical restrictions in an office when I wanted to travel. I would have had to live with something that said no side hustles when I just wanted to build. And I think that the value of even if this fails, even if I lose everything, knowing that I tried and having given it my all is infinitely more valuable than any pile of money that I could have.
I think this ties perfectly into another question I have. If the 20-year-old Ben could see your life today, like would he be proud, surprised, confused? What would he say? Yeah.
I think he would be really surprised pleasantly because 20-year-old Ben was still in college. 20-year-old Ben was a janitor at a building nearby. And the reason that he was a janitor at a building nearby is because 20-year-old Ben couldn't afford a car and he had to get a job somewhere that he could walk. And at the time was just trying to figure out how to get any job. And I remember the first job offer that I got, I was just blown away by. I think it was for like $50,000 a year. I ended up taking a different job, but that was the first offer I got. And I was like, I'm set up for life. Like $50,000 a year. I can do whatever I want. Like I was living in some shithole house. I was like, I could get a car. I could move somewhere better, and this is before lifestyle inflation happens and before you move up the hierarchy. Down there, I'm like, $50,000 is an unbelievable amount of money for someone in my position. And so to think that I would have gone on this crazy, unpredictable journey that led me to where I am, it was not something that was even contemplatable or foreseeable by me back then. I expected that I was going to get a job and then work that job and then like try to stay fit, try to like hang out with my friends and go to the bar and just live a normal life. But as you unlock one thing, it unlocks a piece of your brain. It kind of says, I can do more. And then you build confidence. And then you realize you can do more. And then you build confidence. And then you just work your way up until all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're the president of a technology company making more money in a day than I could have even imagined in a year 10 years ago.
Your whole story really like just ties into Moonlight. Like everything just fits perfectly. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Well, it's
And
intentional. It's like I am building Moonlight for not just myself, but for people who I can see myself in, which is going to make me dangerously effective as a leader because I know this person so well. I know you. Like, I know what drives you. I know what you want. I know how you operate, and I can help you. And I've done it, and I'm going to create a replicable path to give other people the path to being the person that I was to becoming the person that I'm proud of.
and to go a bit deeper into advice, what's that first step? What was your first step, and what would be someone's first step today? Like you were a janitor, and then suddenly all these different careers in all these different verticals, and now being your own boss and having your own startup. Like, what's the first step someone needs to take to find their journey, to find their purpose?
Read a book. And you don't have to literally read. You could do an audiobook. You could be on YouTube, you could do podcasts. When I was a janitor, I used that as an opportunity because when you're left alone all day to sweep floors and haul trash and switch out light bulbs, you're completely alone. You have to talk to anyone. So I put on headphones and I got Audible and I downloaded audiobooks. I got Think and Grow Rich. I got How to Win Friends and Influence People. I got all these, the very classic early stage self help books. And they make a massive difference. And now, in today's day and age, there's a lot of YouTubers out there who can give you like the same, if not better, information modernized in a more compact format. And then as you digest this information, it kind of motivates you to take some sort of action. And, I mean, the first thing I did that was actually action was I joined a club that was in finance. And I figured, like, I don't know why these people who want to make money are studying medical stuff or law stuff. I was like, if you want to learn about money, then study money, like study finance. So I wanted money. I was broke. I studied finance. I joined the Young Investors Club. And then just by joining the club, unpredictable events, I ended up getting elected to uh, these leadership positions, vice president, senior analyst, PR chair. And then by doing that, I learned, well, I don't really like doing public company investing. I like the show Shark Tank where you can actually invest in things and make a difference. So then I started the private equity and venture capital club. So it's like, just do something, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, and then move toward what you like and away from what you don't like. And sometimes that thing that you want to move toward doesn't exist. There was no private equity and venture capital club. Well, if it doesn't exist, that means that there's an opportunity. Go create it. And then just by having that club, we just had everyone in the club reach out to private equity and venture capital and investment banking people in the industry. And next thing you know, I'm like this figure of authority and well-networked person at this school, even though I had like a 2.9 GPA when I graduated. And mind you, I got my best grades in like the last year. So I was coasting with like low mid twos, almost got kicked out of college for having such bad grades for a while. And next thing you know, I'm like on the college board of leadership. I'm the 3 executive positions in one club, founder of another club. And it's like, boom, overnight, just accelerated. And it took me down a path that I never could have predicted. So, read a book and then take action moving toward what you think that you want, go all in, and then learn what you like and don't like, and then move away from what you don't like toward what you do like. And you'll discover who you are throughout that path as well.
It again ties into what we talked earlier, like increase your luck surface area, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I love that. Increase your luck surface area, cast a wider net.
yeah, it's just like by one action and seemingly random action, right? That you took, your life just not complete. Like, it's completely just shut up, and
The trajectory completely changed
yes,
overnight.
yes, exactly. And for someone who is, let's say, there is someone who wants to start their own thing, but they have this cushion behind them. They have a job, they have a paycheck, it's stable, nothing is missing, like it's all fine, well, but they are itching for something more. Like what's something they can do? How can they overcome this big fear of what if I start this? What if it fails? Like what's something that you can help them with?
lower the pain threshold of failure. So if you want to start a business and then you go out and you file a legal entity and then you hire 14 people and then you invest $200,000 and after X period of time you discover that this was a bad idea, there's a lot of pain. So now the way that you lower the pain threshold is by creating what's called an MVP, a minimal viable product. And then you take that MVP and you touch grass. So we now have beautiful tools like Lovable, Figma Make, and all these other prompt-based tools that you can create an MVP. So if you have an idea, go tell AI, this is my idea. Have it make like a crappy version. Sometimes the versions aren't even that crappy. And then take that and go ask people what they think about it. And then if they like it, then keep refining it based on what they want. And then if you're really serious and you think you have something, people are always going to tell you that they like their ideas until you ask them to pull out a credit card. So you do what's called a smoke test. A smoke test is when you create a landing page for the software that you haven't built yet. And then you try to sell the idea. And then you take a low ad budget, you take like $50 or $200 or whatever, which, depending on who you are and your status, that could be low or not. But I would say probably up to $200. And then you try to target the audience that you think would buy this to try to get them onto your landing page. You run ads, quite literally. You create images that say, hey, I have this thing. Do you want to buy it? And then if they do, they click it and they go to your landing page. And then your landing page says, here's more about this thing. And then if they like it, then you ask them to put in money and put in their credit card. And then once they've entered their credit card, you say, sorry, we didn't charge you. It's not ready yet, but we'll let you know when it is. And now you got their email and you know how much money you would have made for how much money that you spent. This is called a smoke test. I didn't make this up. But this is a way that you can really push comes to shove, pressure test. How much money would I make if I had this thing without having first built the thing?
Okay, so it's test and see without quitting your job first. Like, don't quit your job first and then try to figure it out first.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, like I am the fool here. Okay, I am spending a lot more money, and I quit my job, and I don't do what I did. Okay, and I haven't succeeded at this point, and it's very probable I could not succeed, and I could lose everything. Don't do what I'm doing. Stay at your job, create MVPs, smoke tests, pressure tests, figure out what's actually going to make money. And then only after you find something that makes money, then start scaling it on the side. And once you get traction enough that you have confidence that you could grow it more and that your job is in your way, only at that point should you leave your job.
Amazing. Okay, cool. This is great. Before we wrap up, I have one more question, which I think you might have like nice insights into. What about like people that want to try something, and then there are these other people, your parents, your friends, siblings, or whatever, whoever it is, random people on the internet, and they try to dilute your idea, try to tell you it'll never work, and maybe they are coming from a good point, right? They want good for you, but they don't have the experience to tell you if this will actually work or not. How do you overcome these people that are big authorities in your life, like their friends, family, parents, whoever, and they don't validate your idea? How do you overcome that?
I would say two things. Thing one is if the person criticizing has not accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish, then they do not have any room to criticize. And you should take what they say with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean that, hey, you haven't done this, you're completely irrelevant. If people have feedback, take the feedback and, put in this like jar over here of grain of salt. I'll consider this, but I'm not going to let it impact my strategy that much, but I will think about it. And then you have the people, if they've done the thing that you want to do, you should probably listen. Okay. Thing number two, I would say, is data. Okay. Data does not have
Feelings.
any associated bias. If you run a smoke test and it fails and everyone tells you it's a good idea, it's not a good idea, regardless of what people say. If you run a smoke test and it goes really well and everyone tells you it's a bad idea, well, then it doesn't matter what they say. You would have made money. So go where the data tells you to go. Don't take to heart things that people say, even if good intentioned, if they haven't accomplished the thing that you want to, and then find a mentor who's done the thing that you want to do, and then let them guide you.
Perfect. One more thing, like, did you have these types of mentors in your life? Like, or were you more looking into the coaching stuff, or how did that work?
When I was in college and I joined the Young Investors Club, I got what I would call like a mindset mentor. So my friend that I met through the club, he's like, my dad would love you. You should meet him. And I said, yeah, sure. Little did I know that his dad had hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth. I think now he might be like over a billion. I think he's a billionaire now. Um,
Okay.
and my buddy brought me to I had no idea who this guy was, and he brought me to his house, and he basically was telling me how important it was to have a mentor, almost like he was asking me to ask him to be my mentor. And so I like formally like asking a girl on a date. I was like, hey, would you be my mentor? And he goes, sure. And what he pushed me to do, he didn't give me specific strategic advice. He said, go read this book by Tony Robbins. And I said, okay. And so what he was trying to do was shape my reality and my perception of the world, which I think for someone who's very young, that is the most impactful thing that you could do. And so he opened my mind to what was possible, and he built up my confidence in ways that, as a young guy that was stoked about a 50,000 per year job, I couldn't do that. And one of his lessons was, don't go buy nice things until it's like going to the store and buying a pack of gum. Later that week, he went out and bought like a fifth Ferrari, right? So it's just like a stick of gum. And I mean, even to today, I don't really buy nice things. I'm currently traveling. I'm in my mom's garage, and the car that I have is a car that I could buy in cash for like tax reasons. And, I don't have a watch on. This was a gift from my dad when I was very, very young. I don't really care for nice things. I just care about the mission. And I believe that the more I focus on the mission, the more that it will actually materialize into wealth versus if I pursue wealth for the sake of wealth and then buy things, I now have a pile of cash that I can spend on something that I care about because I did not spend it on all of those other things. And this sets me up for success. So, yeah, I mean, I would say I had a mentor when I was very young, and he shaped my thinking more than gave me, hey, do this next strategic advice.
Perfect. And if you had a one advice for someone younger, how to find these people, like how to find a mentor, if like you don't have a budget to pay someone tens of thousands of dollars for some consulting or something, should they reach out? Should they, again, ask around people that they know, or how to go about that?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. I would say the best thing that you could do to find a mentor is before you look for a mentor, learn who you are. What do I mean? You want a mentor who has accomplished what you want to accomplish. Now, how can you seek out a mentor who has accomplished what you want to accomplish if you don't know what you want to accomplish? And, this is like one of my big problems with the book Think and Grow Rich is they say, big step, figure out how much money you want to make. And then you're just supposed to pick a number, like throwing a dart at a board with no bullseye. And I think that they need to first say, how do you figure out what number is right for you? And what I did is I created a spreadsheet. And I was like, I want this car, I want this house, I want another house, I want to be able to travel, I want to be able to do this. And I was like, okay, my number, whenever I did this exercise a while ago, was about 30 grand a month. Nowadays, probably a bit different. But I then had emotion attached to that number. Okay, now you have to figure out, do I want to do anything that makes 30 grand a month, or do I want to do things that are aligned with me? Because I could just reach out to somebody who does something that makes 30 grand a month and then start doing that and then realize I hate this, I'm miserable. So like, do they live the family life that you want? Because if you like want a stable, happy family and you talk to some guy who's CEO of a big company, but he just does it because he wants to impress girls, you guys are gonna have misaligned values, for instance. And then what he's going to instruct you to do is going to be for different reasons than what you have. So you have to find, who am I? What do I want out of life? And who has accomplished all those things, not just financially, but in life and spirit also, so that they can guide me down the long-term path I should be set up for, how I think, how I act, and how I make money, not just a path from zero to X money bags, because anyone who has money can tell you how they got money. You want, how can I live the best life possible for me?
This was amazing. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for being so open, honest, and for giving this great advice. And what I love about your story is it's not linear, it's messy. It has all of these different parts where you evolve and jump through different hoops. I would say like this is really, really unique story, like from one thing
Yeah,
to another thing and being great at all of it. Like props to you, really. Good job.
I appreciate it. And if
And
I say one more thing on that point, actually,
of course,
which is, the instruction I have is go from A to B as quickly as you can. But what you think you want from one day to the next is going to change as you get more information. I thought I wanted to be an investment banker until I became an investment banker and I realized the money's great, but the lifestyle is horrible. And so what you have to do is, you say find someone who is who you want to be. That person, that vision can change. And it doesn't mean that you lack focus. It just means that you've learned more of who you are. And so over time, when you're young, it's going to zigzag a lot, but then it gets more and more narrow and more laser focused. So, like I said, go from A to B as quickly as you can, but B can evolve and it can change. And then move away from what you don't want toward what you do want. Learn what you want more and more better over time, and what you don't want more and more over time. And eventually, you will get to where you want to go.
yeah, again, so don't be afraid to pivot, right? And
Yeah.
your mind can change. It doesn't mean you failed, it doesn't
100%.
mean you didn't succeed. Like it's just, hey, I'm smarter now than I was 3 years ago, and now I want different things in life.
Yeah. You know yourself better.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben, very much again. Um, where can people find what you're doing? Where can they follow you?
So right now you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Ben Furtado, and I will start posting there as I create other social media accounts for what I'm building. And if you want to check out the website, it's moonlightmoney.com. Moonlight is spelled Moonlite, money.com. And that's where you can see the current state of the website. What you see today will be very different from what you see in 6 months from now. But we are growing and evolving and learning. And I'm proud of what we have. And I'm going to be even more proud of what we have in 6 months, in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And on my deathbed, it'll still exist and I'll still be part of it. And it'll be something completely different than what it is today.
Thank you, Ben, again. This was truly amazing. Guys, go follow Ben, and I'll see you in the next one.